Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the second week of the Chile Box 2.0. We're tasting this guy, a black label 2022 a los Vinateros, Bravos, Volcanico, Pais Tinto is what we're tasting today. Yeah. A few announcements before we get into it. Last call for Case Club. I think a lot of you I've already put in your orders, but if you are planning on participating in the Case Club, I'm closing it at noon tomorrow. So get your orders in now so I can get that all set up and get it for you. Yeah. Besides that, next month, tomorrow, as always, on the 15th, the invoices for the next month is going to go out. So June invoices will go out. Given that I'm also moving this month, the end, if you could all help me, especially those of you who are getting your wine shipped who live outside of DC, if you could let me know whether you're joining or not, that would help me quite a bit, so I don't have to hound you and chase after you. But yeah, all the invoices for next month will go out tomorrow, just so you know. And the theme for next month is going to be kind of what I call island box. So it's going to be kind of a little bit underrated, less known regions for islands for wine. So we're talking about like Azores, Mallorca, Corsica, Sardinia. Yes, Sicily is an island, but since we've had a Sicily box, I'm not including Sicily this time. I'm also not including Canary Islands this time because we've had that box as well. But it's all the kind of the smaller other islands in the Mediterranean and also European islands. And they're all kind of like a common thread because they're all in Mediterranean, as well as they all have kind of a volcanic soil that runs through. So even though different grapes are grown, different kind of winemaking is deployed, there's kind of a similar kind of common thread that you will see kind of running through. And I'm hoping that with the wines that are popping up, we can kind of thread that needle, so to speak, so you can kind of see that. So anyways, I thought it'd be kind of fun. Summer months, island box. So yeah, that's the idea next month. Besides that, I don't really have any other announcement, except for this month we're donating to Beacon House. So if you want to donate LSI 6 Foot Wine Club, the donation link is right there in the chat box. Any questions about any of that before we get into the wine itself? Excellent. Hearing none, let's get into the wine. So if you're just joining us now, we're tasting this guy. 2022 a los Vinateros, Bravos, Volcanico, Pais Tinto is what we're tasting today. We had the kind of the glue, fresh, youthful style of Pais called Pipeño last week, right? In a liter bottle. Drink it chilled. It's a chilled red kind of thing. It's meant to be consumed really just young and fresh and just kind of chugged, so to speak. But this week, this is also made from 100% Pais. But you will also immediately notice, first of all, just the color itself is much darker. And it's much more, quote unquote, serious wine, right? We're going to kind of the complete opposite side of Pais. Quite frankly, until I tasted this wine, I didn't realize that Pais was actually capable of producing these kind of like really structured, extracted, deep kind of wines. So I was really blown away. I've had a lot of not a lot, but I've had a Los Vinateros Bravos wines quite a few times in the past. I've worked with these wines. I'm familiar with their wines. I've always been a big fan. But this particular bottling also, the name Volcanico, as it suggests, this is all basically Pais grown on volcanic soil. And as a lot of you who joined, who did the Boj box, as you remember, whenever things are grown on volcanic soil, things tend to get a little more darker, kind of a smokier. The fruit profile tends to get just kind of denser, blacker. Yeah, so, and that's kind of true what happened with Pais here as well. So we'll get into a lot of that once we start talking about Itata and tasting it. But yeah, it's pretty fun to do kind of a same grape, kind of similar region, but very different, like a polar opposite end of the style, just to kind of showcase Pais as this great variety that is very much capable of producing a wide range of wines, depending on where you are. And again, this goes back to this idea, French idea of terroir, right? Like a wine with a sense of place. Depending on where it's grown, they can kind of showcase a very different style, which is always kind of the fun part about wine. So anyways, let's start with the map. Here we go. The Chile map, you guys saw this last week. Should look familiar. Just give you a quick little review of last week. We talked about Chile. One of the things that's really interesting or unique or special about Chile is that this is a country where it was never affected by phlox rot, that root loss disease that kind of wiped out majority of vineyards around the world. But it never came here to Chile. So we're talking about own-rooted, very, very old wine, particularly where we are last week and this week, which is down here in the south. We're in Itata Valley, as a name on the label, it says right there, Itata, right there, right around Concepcion. Particularly this area is where the Spanish conquistadors settled the very first in 1500s and started planting grapes and all of that. So it's not uncommon, it's very common to find 100, 150 plus year old vineyards down here. Some of them ranging up to 200, even 300 plus year old vines or vineyards. So we're talking about very, very old vineyards. Some of the oldest in the world exist right here in Chile. We talked about Chile being kind of a major player in the global wine production. They're the 5th largest producer, which is pretty shocking to think about. France, Italy, Spain, US is kind of a big behemoth, and then just behind that is Chile. So they make a lot of wine, but most of it is, however, very much a commodity bulk, kind of a cheap Bordeaux blends. We talked about French influence right after all the modernization. Free market kind of entered Chile. French were the first one to kind of come here and then invest a lot of money into the wine infrastructure. And the Bordeaux varieties became really popular here, and to this day, that is kind of what runs the game here. We also talked about these different wine regions, right? And what makes Chile interesting is that obviously, being a very narrow and a long country on the left, flanked by a Pacific Ocean on the left, and then the Andes on the right. So there's a really cool ocean breeze that comes in from the left to west, but also Andes cool mountain air that comes down from the east. So there's this kind of an air conditioning effect, so to speak, that happens here. So, and though it can, unless you go to the south, but particularly up north, you get a lot of sunlight. It gets quite desert-like. Atacama region right here with the driest place on earth with a 1 millimeter of rainfall per year. So you can get very dry, very hot, but nonetheless, the kind of cooling effects from the Pacific Ocean and the Andes, they play a major role here. And that's what makes viticulture here really amazing and possible. We talked a little bit about, so Atacama and Coquimbo, the north right here. This is obviously the hottest place, and this being the southern hemisphere, unlike northern hemisphere where we are. So more north you go, the warmer it gets, getting closer to the equator. So here you are seeing a lot of kind of fortified wines, not even fortified wines, but pisco production. So a lot of grape growing happening here for pisco production up here. And then as you come down to Aconcagua, as well as Central Valley, this is where the majority of the Chile's wine production exists. This is where after the French came in and started establishing vineyards and started putting in modern day wine infrastructure, that all happened right here in Aconcagua and Central Valley. So this is where you're going to find, unsurprisingly, most of the Bordeaux blends. So we're talking about Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Cabernet Franc, Petit Verdot, Malbec, all of that. They also have their own variety called Carmenere. A lot of people thought it was Merlot, but it turns out it is actually Carmenere, which is their own kind of a variety that have been grown, and it is grown pretty much all right here in the middle. The central part of Chile is where all the wine production happens. It's kind of like Napa Valley of Chile, essentially. But as you go more south in the southern region, and to me, this is where it gets really interesting. There's a lot of this kind of bastion of a natural winemaking movement that takes place in Chile. But this is also the oldest kind of is where the oldest vineyards exist, because like I mentioned, this is where the Spanish conquistadors first landed, right around Concepcion. They planted their very first vineyards right around here, right along the Pacific coast. And then it spread onto the Tata Valley, down to Biobío, which was where we were last week, named after the Biobío River that runs down here. But this week we're moving a little bit north, and we're in Itata Valley. It gets much cooler. It gets much wetter down here. So the cool climate varieties like Riesling and Pinot Noir is plentiful down here. But also because all those oldest vineyards are down here, you find a lot of that mission grapes, the grapes that the missionaries brought over. So we're talking about things like Carignan, Cinsault, Pais, which is what we're tasting today, and for Muscat for white variety. So you find a lot of that down here, and some of the oldest vineyards in the world exist right here in the southern region of Sur, the south region of Chile. And then as you get even further in the downside, Austral region, this is not really, it's still a very emerging wine area. There's not a whole lot of wine coming out here, but because it gets quite cold down here, they're starting to play around with a lot of like varieties like Chenin Blanc, Riesling. So yeah, like the grape varieties that you don't normally think about when it comes to Chile, they're starting to plant a lot of that and experimenting with it. So, and especially as the global warming takes shape, this area, particularly the South and Australia region, is going to become a more significant player in Chile. So it's definitely a region to keep your eye out for and watch for, because it's going to get pretty interesting. And another thing that we talked about last week was kind of actually, before we get there, let me talk about Itata Valley for a second. So yeah, first settlement of Spanish conquistadors in the 16th century landed here in the Itata Valley, bringing their own vines. Not surprisingly, some of the oldest vineyards in Chile, if not in the world, are here. Some of our 200 plus, even 300 plus years old, which is pretty crazy to think about. Really, Itata Valley, more than any other varieties, Pais is basically what runs what is mostly planted here, which is pretty cool. What makes this region special, besides very old, rooted vines, is it's actually granitic and volcanic soil. Hence the name Volcanico, which is the name of this wine. This is basically Pais planted on volcanic soil down here. So yeah, having that kind of like mineral, very poor in terms of infertile soil. And for grapevines, infertile soil is actually quite good. You actually want the grapevines to struggle a bit for it to produce a good wine. The wines that are grown on a very fertile soil, in fact, without any struggles, it just doesn't produce very quality wines. So as there are less nutrients, the roots have to dig much deeper, so they have to kind of get into the bedrocks of the soil to get to the nutrients as well as water. And all that struggle kind of reduces the yield and then concentrate the berries. So you get concentration, you get the complexity, as well as all the kind of the mineral component that you get from all that roots digging so much down into the bedrock of the soil. So all that is what makes this area quite cool. Cool coastal winds and clouds keep the wine growing season here quite long as well. Obviously, like I said, more south you go, cooler it gets. So the berries hang longer on the vines, and longer the berries hang to ripen, the more complexity of flavors it develops. And that's true of pretty much any fruit that we eat, any from apples to pears or anything. You just basically want them to hang on the trees as long as possible before you harvest. Sadly, just like the rest of southern Chile, a lot of these old vines and old vineyards are being used as a blending wine to cheap like a bulk wines. People just didn't really pay much attention to Pais. They just thought it was like these old vines that were kind of growing there, and then just kind of use it to blend it into table wines. Didn't pay much attention, and that's kind of how it still is down there for the majority. But that is all starting to change now. You know, I would say within the last 10 years or so, Itata Valley and Pais and all this kind of a really native grape varieties as old traditional Chilean winemaking is starting to kind of become hot and hip and revered again. So yeah, there's a lot of potential people are realizing, and then working with these kind of special old vineyards and historic varieties. I want to show you a couple pictures. Last week I promised Phil that I would show you these pictures. Oh yeah, so just to give you an idea of this is what happens. I mean, look at how deep these roots go. By the way, these are Carmenere vines, but look at how deep these roots go. So when the soil is kind of infertile, this is kind of what happens. They have to dig really deep down into the ground to get to some sort of water, some sort of nutrients for these vines to survive. And more these vines struggle to get the roots really planted deep in the ground, the better basically the wines are. So to give you an idea of how deep these aren't even that deep. I've seen grapevine roots cross section that are like 180 feet deep. Like it's crazy. So that's not it. Oh yeah, this is it. So last week, Phil, you asked if Chile was as high elevation as Argentina, but as you can see, it's not. So on average here, even Mendoza is already at pretty much higher elevation than Chile, right? So this is kind of, if you were to cut a cross section through the Andes, so Chile being on the left, Argentina being on the right, and you can also see all the rains that get caught by the Andes on the west, all the clouds that come in from the ocean that get caught, so it becomes very dry and hot on the Argentina side, but on the left it becomes a lot more precipitation and whatnot. As you can see right here, Chile's highest vineyards sits at 7,200 feet elevation, but as we know from last month, we've had, what was it 2 months ago with the Argentina box, we've actually had vineyards from Salta at more than 10,000 feet. So, you know, from Argentina, you can get all the way up to 10,000 feet, but here in Chile, you get up to about 72. I mean, 72 is still pretty damn high. We also talked about this last week, right? So one of the things that also makes Chile interesting is not only because it's just such a long country that there's kind of microclimates that exist depending where you are north to south, right? But also going west to east, there are all these different sections. So there's a costa, which is closer to the coast, and then there's a little bit of this kind of a mountain range that runs through the country as well. So the coast going up this little, you know, about 1,000-foot elevation coming on the left, and then this middle is called Entre Cordilleras. It's between basically this is the valley, and then obviously the Andes right here, kind of on the slope outside. So imagine you got all these different north to south climates changing, and then you also got west to east different. So there's all these different permutations of where you can plant Pinot Noir, like Pinot Noir or, you know, any grape variety planted on this Andes slope versus what was on the valley floor are going to have two complete different expressions, right? On top of that, add in different soil types. On top of that, add in different north to south longitudinal climate differences. So we're talking about a lot of different kind of styles and varieties of styles that you can see. I had another picture. Here we go. Here's another kind of picture to kind of give you an idea. So yeah, this is the kind of air conditioning effect I was telling you about. So all the kind of cool air from the Pacific Ocean blowing in from the west, but also cold air coming down from the Andes to the right. So there's a lot of kind of cool varieties are planted either on the coastal range or right on the foothills going up to the Andes. And then obviously, anytime you go anywhere in the world, at the bottom of the valley floor is where it gets the hottest. And then this is where you're going to find a lot of that Bordeaux varieties that I'm telling you about. So all that thick skin, red skin varieties, so Cabernet, Merlot, Cabernet Franc, Malbec, all that is planted right here on the valley floor. So hopefully that answers some of your questions from last week, Phil. I promise that I'll show you these. So there you go. Any questions about any of that? So yeah, left here in the coastal range, cooler coastal kind of climate. In the middle is obviously warm inland valleys, so a lot of sunlight, a lot of heat, a lot of sugar development that happens here. And then obviously as you go up higher in the mountains, you get less water because it kind of runs off higher sunlight, but it's also because it's more exposed and at elevation, you get a lot more UV rays, so ripening is not a problem, but you get a lot more diurnal shift, which is just a fancy word for temperature difference between daytime and nighttime. Basically, anytime you go up on the elevation, that's what happens. You just get a huge temperature variance from daytime to nighttime, and that difference is actually a good thing for wine grapes, because you during the daytime you develop all the ripeness that you need, the sugar ripeness, flavor ripeness, phenolic ripeness, all of that, but all that cold temperature at night kind of pulls the berries down, and then keeps maintains the natural acidity, which keeps the wine really refreshing, vibrant, and all of that. So that's kind of what happens. Any question about any of this before we get into the next slide? Cool. We also talked about Pais for a second last week, right? The settlers, it was first really believed to originate from Spain in the Castile region, the Leon and Castile region in the 16th century. But then it immigrated to Canary Islands. So now if you're looking for Pais grape in the world, you're not going to find it in Castile region. So you're going to find it mostly in Canary Islands. There is known as Listan Prieto. And then obviously the missionaries from all that brought it to the rest of the New World. And then, so here, it's everywhere basically where the Spanish landed, essentially. So here in Chile, it's known as Pais, but in California, in Mexico, California is basically northern Mexico, it's known as Mission. And then in Argentina, it's known as Criolla Chica. So anytime you see those names, Mission, Pais, or Criolla Chica, they're all the same thing. They're talking about the same grape variety. Listan Prieto. Cool. Let's talk about who makes this wine, which is this guy, Leonardo Erazzo, or Leo. So it's this guy. Graduate from University of Chile with a degree in agronomy and enology. So he's classically trained, but then he traveled the world right after he graduated, working harvests and vintages in France, South Africa, Australia. But he was always very much of a nerd, and then did a lot of research in soil science, geology, and biodynamics while he was working on this harvest. That's where his interest was. And then he came back to Chile, but then he actually ended up working at a winery in Argentina, so in a neighboring country. You might have heard of a brand name called Altos. You can find it pretty much anywhere on a Safeway wine shelves. The Altos Malbec is pretty much everywhere in grocery stores, at least in America. Well, anyways, in 2016, he was working as a winemaker for Altos. And then he was responsible for converting their 90 hectares of estate to organic farming and parceling out all the different terroirs, right? Big job. But Leo, during that time, Leo and his family were lucky enough to purchase 2 hectares, very small, of vines from an old farmer in Itata. But he was already working with these kind of vines in this area, again, for that kind of soil research and the old vines that he was interested in. So he knew the area pretty well. So since 2016, the project has grown to 6 hectares now. And as of 2020, so not too long ago, Leo has completely left all the other winemaking duties and has gone full-time at his family vineyard, a los Vinateros Bravos. By the way, a los Vinateros Bravos means to the brave winemakers, is essentially what that means. And it's a tribute and homage to kind of a respect to all the vignerons, all the vine growers in the region, in the Itata region, that are holding on to tradition, not giving into this kind of international pressure to either replace Pais with national varieties and make wines in a modern way. So yeah, this is kind of his respect, homage to all of that. What else? Yeah, besides 6 hectares, he also tends 4 hectares of forest to improve biodiversity as well. And Leo's message is kind of clear. Essentially, he's saying the south of Chile has some of the oldest vineyards in the world, and they're disappearing. he wants to preserve them and the old ways that they were tended. In a rapidly changing, globalized modern world, Itata is still stuck in that kind of beautiful past, and then he wants to make wines in the ways that his ancestors used to make. So that's all he's trying to do with Los Vinateros, Bravos. I don't know if you guys have ever had any of these wines. He doesn't make a whole lot of wine, so sometimes it's hard to find. But this is also a fun winery to kind of explore Itata region, because he makes these wines parcel by parcel. So some are just on volcanic, some are going just to granite, all these different varieties, and he makes them just, it's very like a Burgundian approach. So it's very, very specific parcel by parcel vinification. So you can really kind of understand the terroir, the land, through the lens of a singular varietal variety. So fun producer to kind of taste through. By the way, Los Vinateros is Bravos is totally off the grid, all gravity fed, solar power. They use only rainwater in the cellar. Everything is done by hand and horse. There's no tractor or mechanization of any sort on the property. GCU. By the way, this is the Pais grape. I saw that last week. All right. So what is this wine? This is 100% dry farm, bush vine train, old vine, organic, and biodynamically grown Pais. That's a mouthful. So let me explain each one of those. 100% dry farm, meaning there's no irrigation. He's not pulling water from anywhere. It's just, it's just grown in the ground. Oftentimes when you irrigate the land, not only, again, that stress, that water stress, too much water stress is obviously bad for the vines, but some water stress is good. So kind of removing that stress point from the vine is not necessarily a good thing. So dry farm is always preferred over a irrigation, but obviously some parts of the world irrigation is necessary. But then I always make this point: it's like if you have to irrigate, if you have to spray, if you have to put fungicide and insecticides and pesticides, I mean, maybe you're not meant to be growing grapes there. Maybe it's not a place that you should be growing grapes. But this is 100% dry farmed, bush vine train, meaning there's no trellising, there's no training. These are just essentially open grown. They look like just kind of little, basically goblet, little like just naturally just growing vines. They look like trees more like than vines. That's what bush vine train means. And then old vine, meaning just these are really old vineyards. Organic and biodynamically grown. Sense that Pais. Common to find 100-plus-year-old vines in this part of Chile. The vineyard that he currently works with, that this wine is from, was planted in 1900, just to give you an idea. I'm not saying all the vines are in there that are old, but at least that vineyard, the land that he harvests this grapes from, is first planted in 1900. Just give you an idea of how old these vineyards are. The volcanic and granitic soil, very fertile, causes for deep root development, leading to more minerality, complexity, and concentration. We talked about that. Uses native yeast only, and then fermented in cement tank. Then it's a gentle basket press, which is an old school kind of wooden staves, and then you just kind of press it using car jacks from the top. Very gentle way of extracting, pressing out the juice from the skins, or separating the juice from the skins. Then it's aged in large wooden vessels, or neutral vessels, very old neutral vessels. So it's not for flavor. There's no new oak on here. It's all neutral oak for 14 months. This is really just for kind of like making sure everything, all the flavors kind of settle down, harmonizes, and then also just kind of soften out the edges. Because wine, when it's just first made, can be quite sharp around the edges. And then it's bottled with very coarse filtration and just a touch of sulfites is what this wine is. Any questions about I just went over? By the way, I wanted to put their wines in the very first Chile box I put together, but we just happened to catch them at the right moment. Like I mentioned, they make minuscule amount of wine, and they get snatched up real fast as soon as they land. And then we just happened to catch them right as the container was landing. So that's why I'm pretty stoked that we were able to feature this on the box this year. But yeah, any questions? about anything I just want to work before you get into tasting? All right, let's taste the wine. Who wants to take the appearance?
I'll do it.
All right, Phil.
Okay. This wine is not hazy, but it's not super clear.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, all intents and purposes, I would say it's clear, but like, yeah, you can tell this wine is not like super filtered fine. It's not super translucent for sure.
Right. And the intensity is, I'd say a deep intensity in color.
Yeah. I don't know if I'll go all the way deep. I can kind of see,
deep, but more than medium.
Yeah, I would say like medium plus here. Like I can kind of, yeah, I can see kind of like through.
Yeah, when I get the light on it, I can see through it.
Yeah.
Not clearly, but I can see through it.
Totally. Yeah. So I'll call this medium to medium plus. What do you got?
Ruby color.
Yeah, I'll definitely call this ruby. This is like a textbook ruby right here.
Yeah.
Any other observations?
No, because you said it was filtered, but not fined or not fine.
Definitely not fined. And then the filter even meaning, so there are different levels of filtering, right? Like you can put it through like the clay, you can put it through membranes and all of that. This is very coarse filtering. So we're talking about literally just to get rid of just kind of like the lees and the like bigger compounds, like chunks essentially that's left on there. So a lot of this kind of clarity that you see here is just basically leaving the wine to age for 14 months, letting it just kind of settle, natural settling of all the remnants, and then racking off the clear portion. Yeah. By the way, racking, you're going to hear that term quite a bit in the wine world. Racking, what that means is when you let the wine kind of sit, all the sediments will settle to the bottom, and the wines will be clear on top. And then when you siphon that clear portion of the wine off and put it into another vessel, that's called racking. So a lot of times, a lot of wineries that don't necessarily want to filter. I mean, filtering is essentially a cheat, like it's a fast way to rack. If you leave the wine long enough, things will settle, and then you can take the clear portion. You can get it to pretty damn clear by letting it just settle, and then you can just rack off. But yeah, and obviously it depends on how fine the membrane you use, like how much you're filtering out. Obviously, you can get it down to like 5 micro omicrons, where you can literally filter out like yeast cells out of wine. So you can get it down that level. But for this one, we're just talking about getting like big chunks of the wine, not necessarily.
Yeah, because it's got a little haze to it. It isn't.
Oh yeah, clear. Totally. But no finding for sure. Cool. Excellent. You get to pick the next person for the notes.
Let's see. Kirsten, you guys up for it?
Yeah, sorry, just negotiating with the child to go to bed.
All right.
All right.
To the nose.
It's clean.
This one is clean. This one is sound. It also smells delicious. I'm sorry.
Oh my God.
This one
I'm just
so
gonna tell you
good.
already that I absolutely love this wine.
Yeah, like it smells so good.
I love everything about it.
Intensity.
Medium plus.
It's like between medium and medium plus for me. Definitely off the glass, but not like,
Let's see.
not too far.
I don't know. I'm looking at it here. So what is that? Yeah, maybe like it's like lower end of medium plus, higher end of medium.
Yeah. I feel like it's like just shy of medium plus for me.
Yeah. But being generous, I'm gonna call it medium plus. But yeah, it's like right in that middle ground. Like, all right.
Okay.
What do you get? Medium to medium plus aromas. Ooh.
Strong red. Really red.
Do you get some floral?
I don't really get much floral.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe a little bit, but not anything really. Nothing distinct.
I would call this I won't call this a super floral, but you know, maybe a little violet, maybe the like blue flower kind of a deal going on here. But yeah. Green
No
fruit.
green, no citrus, no stone, no tropical.
Yep,
Also
yep,
red.
same. Red fruit, black fruit.
Red fruit.
Yeah, both.
Huh?
Cherry.
Probably more, I think more black than red for me.
Yeah, me too. I get that. I agree with you. Like to me, there's like kind of like that bramble where like you can't quite tell if it's a red or black thing. You know, like just that very British thing that's called bramble. I mean, it's less on the black fruit, but to me, bramble is like that when it's like between red and black fruit. But I get some of that for sure. But yeah, I for me, this is more black than it is red.
Interesting. Okay.
What do you got? Call out some fruits.
Black cherry. Maybe a little
Mhm.
blackberry.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I do still get some red,
Yeah, me too.
like more of like, I don't know if this makes sense, but like the darker red
Yeah,
fruits, like
no,
the
totally.
raspberry or cherry or plum.
Yeah, and I know some
I
people
don't know.
look at
It
me.
doesn't. This isn't gonna make sense, but it like smells dark to me.
Yeah, no, like people roll their eyes when I say this, but there is a fruit called black raspberry. It's real. I'm not making this shit up.
There's
Uh,
black raspberry ice cream is delicious.
yeah, they're really a fruit called black raspberry, and it's like that real cross between raspberry and like
Yeah.
a blackberry. And then like to me, like there's some of that going on here for sure. Yeah, it's like that red but dark, like exactly what you were saying.
There's a very black raspberry ice cream is very popular in New England.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
See, black raspberries are real. I'm not
With
making this shit
chocolate
up.
chips, it's delicious.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Make this shit up.
Um,
All right. What else? Any
I
of the
think
fruit?
it's still pretty fresh. It's still pretty fresh fruit, so nothing really dried or cooked.
Yeah, the fruit quality here is really fresh, really ripe. Like, yeah, nothing underripe, nothing overripe. It's like really ripe and fresh for me.
I don't know. There's something a little bit either like non-fruit. Like I don't know if
Mhm.
it's
Yeah, I agree.
maybe more on the
Yeah.
herbaceous than the herbal, but there's something in there.
Agreed. There's a little bit of like a green kind of thing going on here. A little bit like a leafy. Yeah, I totally agree. I think there's definitely some like leafy green, kind of like a vegetal kind of a thing going on here for sure. There's a savory
It's
component
like
to
the
this one.
same for me as the floral. It's like it's there, but it doesn't feel like it doesn't feel
Yeah.
like definable. It's just there's
Yeah.
something besides fruit.
Yeah, that's fair. Any spice?
Not really for me.
Yeah, I don't get a whole lot of spice here. Any minerality? Any rockiness?
A little bit.
Yeah, I get some rockiness here. I get some minerality here for sure. I get some of that crushed rock, kind of like a rock dust kind of a thing. If you ever go over like a quarry and like if you ever watch people like mining rocks, there's like a rock dusty kind of a thing going on here that I get. Some of that kind of like dusty kind of roadside black raspberry, so to speak. You know, it's not like the perfectly clean, washed farmer's market blackberry, but it's like the one that you find on the side of the road. It's got like the dust on it, kind of a raspberry, you know, like it's got some of that going on here. Again, knowing that this is grown on like a volcanic soil, like that makes a lot of sense. Like there's some level of that kind of like little dusty, even like smoky, kind of like a black dust kind of a thing going on here as well.
Yeah,
right.
I don't like smell the smokiness as much, but we did like barbecue chicken and
Yeah.
I made like a particularly more smoked paprika and stuff
Oh.
in the barbecue sauce. So definitely smokiness in the taste of the
Yeah.
wine, like
Okay.
in pairing it with the barbecue chicken.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Like
Uh,
I don't smell it as much, but I tasted it at least before. I have to taste it again to see how I'm doing.
Yeah.
I know I'm not on taste, but
Any secondary?
no, not
Yeah.
really.
Yeah,
all
I mean, this
pretty
doesn't make
fresh.
sense. It didn't sit on these for all that long, right? I mean, 14 months, but it's not like you're sitting also with a red wine, you're rarely gonna get like huge autolysis coming through. So yeah, no lees. MLF, I mean, this wine definitely went through MLF for sure. But oak here, no new oak. There's no spices here. This is all cement and with a touch of 14 months in a very, very old neutral oak. So it's not about new oak flavors, just more for texture and then just kind of a blend, letting it just kind of chill and relax a little bit. Any tertiary?
No.
No, yeah. This is very fresh still, very much in the primary region right here. Cool, excellent job. You get to pick the next person for the palette.
Does anybody want to volunteer before I pick somebody? Try to look who's on. Let's see. I have my glasses on. How about Cecilia? You want to do the palette?
If I can find my unmute button. Sure.
You found it.
Okay. So this is definitely dry.
This one is bone dry. There's not a touch of sugar on this one.
No.
Yeah, this one is dry for sure. Acidity.
This feels like medium un. Like it doesn't feel super acidic to me,
Mhm.
but I feel like my palate might be a little fucked up.
It's got a good acid. Yeah. And to me, this registered at like a lower in the medium plus, higher in the medium. It's not like squarely screaming at me, but I mean, I still feel it pulling. So I'm gonna go to medium plus on this one. But yeah, I think medium is perfectly reasonable here. But just noting that there's a good kind of like acidity, freshness to this wine, despite it having all that kind of intense fruit and all the things that Kirsten was talking about. Tannin.
It feels like decently grippy.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know that I go all the way to medium plus, but like feels like higher medium.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is definitely one of more tannic. It was definitely more tannic than it was last week.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We're getting to like higher in the medium. Yeah, I totally agree. Higher in the medium, lower in the medium plus tannin level. There's definitely some tannin present here. Like I feel it all through my gum here,
Mm-hmm.
all through the back, sides of my tongue. Yeah, there's some grip. Actually, I may call this medium plus as well. But yeah, there's definitely some grip. Talk to me about. I mean, this grid doesn't ask us to do this, but talk to me about the texture, the nature of the tannin, because it can be really just like young, rustic, almost like you can chew the wine kind of tannin, very green, or you can be really fine grain, almost like just powdery kind of a tannin that's in there. What does it feel like to you?
The way you describe it feels more rustic to me. It feels like
Mhm.
grippier on my gums for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I would point out. So a lot of tannin wines that we've had, even when the tannin gets high, it's oftentimes pretty fine grain, but this wine, this tannin feels very rustic. It's like chewy. It's like almost like there's a texture to the wine that I can almost like chew.
Yeah.
Which is yeah, I mean, this is part of the reason why I like suggested barbecue. Like this can hold up to a lot of like meat, really high protein content kind of a meal. Tannin and protein, by the way, they love each other. So by having a protein rich meal, the tannic wines will feel softer because they bind together, chemically speaking. So yeah. Alcohol.
Yeah, we had kebabs from
Yeah.
Yellow tonight with this. I
Yeah.
know delicious.
Yeah, that was very good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Alcohol.
It feels like 12-ish% to me, like medium.
Yeah.
Is
Doesn't
it?
feel all that high. 12.5 maybe.
Yeah. It's 12.5.
12.5. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. Right in the middle. That's exactly what that smack in the middle of medium. Moose, obviously, we don't have to talk about. Flavor intensity.
Oh, that's not the finish though.
Yeah, flavor intensity. How strong are the flavors?
Like medium to medium plus to me.
Yeah, agreed. Like I feel like
It's
everything
not
is like,
shy.
yeah, it's not a shy wine. The flavors here, just like on the nose, you know, we're calling kind of in that medium to medium plus, depending on how generous you are. Depending on also, I bet this wine's gonna, I don't know how long you guys, the wines have been open or if you guys decanted it or whatnot. I didn't have a chance to decant it, so I opened it right with the tasting from the beginning. But this wine, I have a feeling this one is gonna open up as well. So the intensity could change with some of the exposure to oxygen. But yeah, to me, there's nothing shy about this flavor. So yeah, I'm gonna call this a medium plus as well. Do you confirm everything that Kirsten called out? Is there anything else that sticks out to you?
Yeah, lots of black, dark red black fruit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. This is where this wine lives, right? And then this is interesting. This is what I want to point out. The exact same variety, the exact same. They're both Pais last week and this week, right? This is going on volcanic soil.
Very different.
Yeah, the other one was going on granite, right?
Yeah.
And sandy granite, and this is like a bedrock volcanic. Yet two completely different wines, and that's what volcanic soil does. And we've seen this in Bojbaks, right? Like Julienaz, Côte de Pie in Morgon, Côte de Brewery, right? These volcanic spots within Beaujolais, the fruit expression changed completely, right? It became very dark, more blackberries and black fruit, while places like Santa Maur, Chenaz, like these places were much more poppy, bright red berries. And it's the same thing here, right? You take the same grape, Pais, nearly the same place, right? Bio Valley, Itata Valley, they're like right next to each other. But one's growing volcanic, one's growing granitic sand, yet the fruit profile is completely different. Last week was this raspberries, strawberries, you know, cranberries popping out bright, you know, and then here this week it's like deep, tons of tannin, structured, right? There's a minerality, and it's all because the volcanic soil. So kind of fun. All right. Nature of the fruit.
Like it tastes pretty fresh, but I get a little jamminess.
Yeah, you know, I was actually just thinking that.
Yeah.
Even more so on the palate than on the nose.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get like that kind of like really, really ripe, jammy, almost like like almost on the overripe kind of section of the fruit.
Yeah.
For sure. So
like
yeah.
Overripe cherry. Yeah.
For sure. I even get like a little plumminess here as well. But yeah, I think that jammy kind of a ripe, overripe kind of a fruit call is actually quite good. Any herbaceous, non-fruit, savory, herbaceous herbal things?
No, but I get like stony. It tastes a little stony to me, or maybe because it's called the volcanic. It was in my head, but yeah, I
totally.
Get, I
yeah,
get
it
that.
could be power suggestion. Yeah, totally. We're all humans. We're all susceptible to power suggestion. But yeah, to me, there's so much minerality flavor here. Like this wine it just screams volcanic soil. Everything about it has this kind of like dark, brooding sense to it. This kind of smoky, rocky, dusty minerality thing going on here. Dark fruit, structure. I mean, this is like that basalt volcanic magma kind of a thing, rock thing going on here for sure. I do still get a little bit like a savory thing, less so on the palate. I agree. Like it's quite interesting to me here, for me on the palate, how much of this is much more fruit, really ripe, jammy kind of fruit. But on the nose, I got a little more. I got some of that kind of savory kind of quality to it. But yeah, I still do get some of the savory though. I get a little bit of that kind of like something vegetable, something just touch of green here. But yeah, mostly really black fruit, touch of red fruit, that red black fruit, red blackberry or black raspberry thing going on here with a ton of volcanic influence. Any secondary, any tertiary?
I don't get it on the palate. No.
Yeah. I don't get it either. Finally, the finish. How is the finish?
Medium plus? I don't know. It stays.
Yeah, I'm gonna call this medium plus as well. This length, there's got some length to it. I'm still tasting it. I like immediately get this. Like I also get a little bit of violet on this thing. There's a touch of like a blue flower thing going on here for me as well. So little violet, and then all that just kind of that black fruit, plummy, jammy, black raspberry, all that comes in, and then I get a touch of that kind of savory, the vegetable kind of fresh cut grass kind of a thing. And then ultimately it's all that kind of smoky, rocky minerality is what finishes out at the end. And it goes on for a while. So I'm going to call this medium plus as well.
It's
Bring it
still
on.
there. Yeah.
Yeah. Bring it on for us, Cecilia. How good is this wine and age it?
So for aging, it's got the acidity, it's got tannin, so it'd probably be good for, I mean, it's delicious right now.
Yeah.
But also I think could be aged. Might be interesting to see what happens.
Absolutely, right? Like we are talking about, it's got medium plus acid. We're sorry with the medium plus, but we call it medium plus with good acid. Also medium plus tannin, somewhere between medium plus. I call it medium plus, but good amount of tannin. So we got a really good solid backbone here, right? And then we got medium plus concentration, and we got all this fruit. Like everything is primary here. And then as these wines age, all that primary fruit, enough of the concentration of fruit, some of that is going to turn into a non-fruit flavor, going to tertiary flavors, adding more complexity to it. And I think this is an excellent candidate for aging. Yeah, I would definitely, I think it's drinking beautifully now, but I would definitely think that this wine's going to improve with aging.
This would be one of those ones that'd be hard for me to not drink soon.
Yeah, I mean, it's delicious now. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I'll drink the shit out of this thing right now. Again, every sip, I'm like, God damn it, this one's good. But I
It's like
think
I'm having a steak tonight. Let me open this.
Exactly. Yeah, this is like a meat, like grilled
Yeah.
meat, steak, like that kind of wine here. You know, I don't have a whole lot of reference point for aged Pais, but just knowing the structure and where it is now, I think this can easily go for another 5 to 8 years will be my guess. So I think this is an excellent candidate to buy, like, you know, 4 to 6 bottles, maybe drink like a couple down and then just forget about the 4 and come back in like 5 years. And be like, oh shit, I forgot about these. They're delicious. You didn't call out the quality level.
Oh yeah, so it's the finish was long or medium plus.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't have any tertiary. It was all mostly primary, right?
Mm-hmm.
What else goes with this?
So finish, you call it long, medium plus. Complexity is all primary, but we called out something both red and black. Some minerality, some
A little bit of floral, touch of
a little
floral.
bit of floral, yeah, touch
Yeah.
of floral, touch of like a savory note. So a few things going on, but you know, all primary. So I would still call that what? Medium, right? Concentration, we called it medium plus on the nose, so somewhere between medium
Yeah,
plus,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I call it, being generous, called it medium plus. And then I think this wine is very well balanced, right? There's nothing
Mhm.
here that's sticking out. So we're looking at it well balanced, medium plus concentration, medium complexity, medium plus length. So when you take the average of all of that, we land
Good to very good.
good to very good.
Yeah.
but you know,
You like to be
having-
generous. We like to be generous here.
and also having, yeah, 2 medium pluses and 1 medium, closer to very good. So being generous, we're gonna call it very good. But yeah, anywhere in between, good to very good. And like I said, I don't know if you guys decanted your wine or I don't know when you guys opened your wine, but
Mine's been
I
open like 2 hours. Yeah.
yeah, I
I
have a feeling this one's gonna.
decanted my wine.
Yeah, okay. Well, do you agree with that medium to medium plus call, Allison? Or
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
I really like this wine.
yeah,
I love it.
it's delicious. But
This
yeah,
is like
so-
you don't even need a good steak to drink this wine.
that tannin can be pretty rough. That tannin is rough. There's a lot of tannin here. So if you're not like a tannic wine person, I can see how this wine can be a little rough without food. But it's structured, you know, it's textural, like, you know, it's delicious. There's plenty of fruit, really gorgeously ripe fruit. There's some of that like minerality and smokiness and the rocky dusting going on here as well. But then there's like textural component. You can almost chew the wine. So yeah, it's while it's delicious, you can go back at kind of different aspects of the wine, which I think is really beautiful about this wine. But again, here you go, like complete different wine, right? Both Pais again. And it all depends on, it's not that one is better than the other. Like last week, we called it good in terms of quality, but like for a wine that you're gonna chug or youthful, like chill it down when you're poolside, you're just pounding it down. Like you don't need something that is this big and, you know, tannic and layered. So it has its place, but again, very, very different range, very different style, and both is possible with the Pais, and that's what I'm trying to show in these 2 weeks. Any questions about anything with that we just went over?
I think it's crazy they're the same grape. But
Right? Same thing, same grape variety and same region, like literally the same region.
Yeah.
The south, but just right next to each other.
I was just
did you
gonna
guys have-
say that I think one of there's some like, you know, key things I've learned through wine club, but I don't think I've ever had a wine from a volcanic soil that I don't love.
Yeah, you're a huge Sicilian wine lover. So again,
Yeah.
volcanic soil. Yeah,
All the Canary Island stuff we did,
Canary
like,
Islands, yeah.
yeah, I mean, anything volcanic, I'm in.
See,
And
there
this
you go.
one's no exception. I love this wine.
There you go. There you go.
I feel like the same, like on the in the Gamay box, there was the one in volcanic soil that was also like so good. Not
Yeah.
the Boge box, but the Gamay box.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, I mean, it's not that one is better than the other. It's just like a different preference, right? Do you guys have like a clear preference, like one or the other, last week versus this week? You like one over the other? Who likes this week's wine better than
I
last
think it honestly depends on the vibe for me.
week? Yeah, totally. Depends on what you're doing. Like again, if it's a hot day on a poolside, like I much rather drink last week's wine.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to drink this.
Like that's a Memorial Day weekend wine.
Yeah.
Sit outside, whatever.
Yeah.
This
Yeah,
is this is a grill some good meat
100%.
and have some wine and get maybe a little drunk. Yeah.
Exactly.
I really liked
Different
that
occasions.
when we first started drinking it, but I think the mousy end to it kind of soured me on how much I liked it in the beginning.
Right.
So now I really love this. Like, I think this is, like, I like it better than last week.
Yeah.
Regardless, but I think last week I just have like, my memories are tainted by the ending.
But now you know what mouse is. Like that's very obvious, right?
Yeah,
Like, now that
I
you know
had
exactly
not
what-
really understood what that was until everyone was really describing it. And yeah, that is it.
That's mouse. Yeah, I went back. I tasted that wine over 3 more days afterwards. By third day, it was a fucking torture. It was bad. It never got better. It never came out of that. It just got mousier, mousier, mousier.
Oh.
Cool. Oh, Allison, if you didn't have last week's yet, you got to drink it in 2 hours. Chill it, drink it in 2 hours. You
It's a
have 2
whole
hours.
liter. I don't think I can drink a liter of wine in
Get-
2
get
hours.
Grab
It's
it.
a
Yep.
Memorial Day weekend.
Oh,
Start
that's
your
true.
day off with friends and
Yeah.
drink it quick.
And Kevin's about
Kevin's
to
done with school.
graduate, so he can
Yeah.
help me with it.
Exactly. Kevin's done with school, so you gotta get him in, but you gotta drink that in 2 hours. Otherwise, you're gonna get mouse.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, good to know. Good to know.
I honestly didn't finish it because the next day I couldn't drink it anymore.
Yeah.
And it was a whole liter.
Yeah, it was bad. Sometimes it's not always. Most wines, once it goes mousy, it never comes back. But I've had some wines that crawls back in, like where the mouse actually mellows back out after a few days. But this one was not one of those. It just got worse and worse. So, but again, that's kind of what happens with a natural wine. That's what happens with these 0-0 wines. Not all of them, but some of them it can happen. So that's what I mean by there's no safety net. It's much more kind of risky, much more unpredictable way of making wine because there's no protection from anything. You're just drinking the rye form of it. So.
But the last week's was very easy to drink.
Yeah.
Just depends on how much you're willing to drink.
Yeah.
In a sitting, or have friends. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. Again, different wines for different occasions. It's not necessarily one is better than the other. I mean, obviously, even according to the grade, we call last week's good, this week's very good. So in a conventional sense, this is a more serious, better wine. But again, depends on what you're doing. You know, depends on when you're drinking it, who you're drinking it with. You know, it's all about the context. You know, it's just it's a beautiful thing about wine. All right. Any questions about anything? Also, I'm not gonna lie, I love that you guys are starting to thread this needle about volcanic soil with Box, Game, Pais, Canary Islands. Like you're starting to see what volcanic soil does to the wine, and now you can like articulate your preference. Like I love wines that are grown on volcanic soil because like you know that now. You know, like that's a beautiful thing, and like that kind of stuff really helps when you're out in restaurants or retail shop trying to pick out wines, being able to like articulate that to sommelier or wine buyer or anybody, like that helps them out immensely because now they have an understanding, they have a reference point, starting point of where to take you from there. So that's great. All right, let's play a viewer's favorite game. How much do you think this wine is on a retail shelf? How much do you think you will be happy paying for this on a retail shelf? More serious, better wine, right? But also it's still Chile. Very minuscule amount, not a whole lot of made. Yeah. 24, 25, 37. Okay. All right, Allison. 25, 28, 35, 30, 30. Okay. All right. Well, closest one is actually Cecilia and Allison. This would be $26 on a retail shop. I think for $26, very good, with a 5 to 8 year potential. I think this is a banger. I think this is no brainer. I'll be very happy paying $26.
I would pay more than $26 for this.
100%. 100%. This wine punches way above its price. And again, this is kind of stuff. But this is why I love Chile. Like, there's so much value to be had in Chile. You just gotta know where to find it. But Chile, don't sleep on Chile.
When we go to the beach in the summer with my family, my brother-in-law does most of the grilling, and he always does more than once, usually like steak night. He calls it steak night at Dave's Cabana. And it's a like thing. And I just said to Norris, I'm like, we're getting this in Case Club and we're bringing it to the beach for steak night at Dave's Cabana. It's gonna be perfect. Like on the beach when it starts to cool down a little bit, steak, the ocean in the background. Yeah. It's gonna be perfect.
Yeah. I mean, grown right next to the ocean in Chile, you know, it's this is exactly that kind of wine, right? Like the barbecue grill steak next sitting by the ocean. Like, this is what you drink. Absolutely. Absolutely. Cool. Glad you guys liked it. Because I fucking love this wine and I fucking love this producer. Like I love everything. So Any other questions? Cool. Well,
But I have a
great.
comment. This wine didn't have the funk that last week's wine did.
This one, okay, so this is a good time to also talk about that as well. This one does get sulfite treatment. Not a lot, and I couldn't find out exactly how much he put on there, but I mean, it's minuscule. I'm willing to bet it's probably less than 10 milligrams per liter. So sulfites, we talked about this last week a little bit. It is basically an antiseptic. It kills everything. It kills all the bacteria, all the enzymes, all the good ones, all the bad ones. It kills everything. There are multiple points at which you can administer sulfur in the winery. First, you can even actually do it in the vineyards as a part of the treatment on the vines. Even in organic farming, copper and sulfur spraying is actually allowed. And this is not just viticulture. This is for any farming and everything. It all depends on how much you put on and when you put on, how close you are to the harvest. That's what that matters. But you can actually spray any crop with copper and sulfur. That is actually legally allowed in organic farming, just so everybody knows. But in the cellar, once it comes in, the sulfur can go on as soon as it comes in, just to kill off all the yeast on the skin, just to kill off all the bacteria. So you just have a blank canvas. You just have a grape sugar juice, essentially. When I worked harvests in Virginia, like 5-6 years ago, I was working at a custom crush pad. What that means is they were essentially a winemaking facility for many different wine brands. So they would have like a recipe, and they would ask them to make certain wine using this strain of yeast, following these recipes, and it will just make them. Some of them are like very natural minded folks, so they want to use as little sulfites as possible, put as little stuff as possible. But some of them are very much of a conventional wine brands. So those, as soon as the grapes came in, we literally sprayed sulfur all over the fruit. And to get that sulfur, like we have to put on like a hazmat suit and wear a mask to handle all of that. And then we have to spray that shit all over the fruit. Like it is a poisonous substance. And then you can do that as soon as wine comes in, and you can do that after wine ferments with its natural native yeast and spontaneous fermentation. Once the fermentation is done, you can spray it, put some sulfur in it. So now that all the sugar has been converted, you kill off all the yeast. Now that it's done, now it's a stable product. Or you can do the spontaneous fermentation, let it age in whatever vessel you want, and then right before bottling, you put some on there just so that it doesn't do anything funky in the bottle while it's being shipped or being stored or whatnot. Last week's case, the guy didn't put in anything. No sulfur at the beginning, no sulfur in the middle, no sulfur at the end. There's no sulfur added at any point, right? Very risky winemaking. Like something, if at any point, if some bacteria or enzyme gets entered into the wine, and by the way, last week's wine, if you guys remember, Rowley, that big, gigantic open top fermenter that he fermented and aged his wines in that thing. Open top, just to expose to wild air. Like that's how fucking crazy that is. Like he has to be so confident in his farming that he has a healthy amount of microbes already grown in his vineyards that they can fight off all this bad bacteria and enzymes so the wine doesn't turn to vinegar in that open top vessel, right? So, but he just refused to put in the sulfur on. This guy doesn't do that. He does it in cement tank that's close cap. But then at the end, right before bottling, he doesn't put sulfur anywhere else, but right before bottling, he does add some sulfur. In US, we're allowed up to about 95 milliliters, grams per liters of sulfur, added sulfur. So there's a free sulfur, which is, anything that's fermented has naturally occurring amount of sulfur that happens. But in US, you can add up to about 95. In EU, in Europe, you can add about 75. That's the limit. You can't put any more than that, legally speaking. But these guys, most of the wineries that we deal with in 6-foot wine club, we're talking about maybe 10, 15 at most. It's kind of the amount that they put in. So it's a minuscule amount they put in just to kind of stabilize it a little bit. But oftentimes it's almost just at palate. But yeah, to answer your question, Phil, to answer your question, it's because last week's guy didn't put any sulfur on it. He's just like, he just raw dog, he just like no protection, he's just in it, right? And this guy is just very careful. He's got the close top cement and then putting sulfur right at the bottom. That's why this feels a lot cleaner and then more stable. And again, it's not that one is better than the other. It's just like last week's is more of like a live music, like going to like anything could happen, right? It's like a live music, something could go wrong. It's got more of a high wire act. And then this week is much more like rehearsed. It's like a beautifully rehearsed kind of music, recorded music, if that makes sense. It's not that one is better than the other. Any other questions?
Una, I felt this wine was like so well balanced. Like as if you compared it to last week, right, where it was like you either love it or you don't. And
Yeah.
I happen to love it,
Yeah.
but I felt it was a little bit more of an extreme, not
Yeah.
extreme, but it was like
Polarizing.
it was different. And this one, I just feel like it hits every note, but it's balanced. That
Yeah.
was my take on it. So I really like this one.
I think that's fair. I mean, last week is a lot more. Also, last week was also a lot more of like a true traditional Chilean winemaking. Like he doesn't want to change anything the way people made wines, 100, 200 years ago. Like that's how wines used to be made 200 years ago, before any of these modern day winemaking came around. There was no cement tank. There was no sulfites. There's none of this shit, right? Like that's how wines were made 200 years ago, 300 years ago. And he's still making it that way, right? And it's almost like a ideological kind of stance. He's trying to make a statement. It's like, I don't need any of that shit, right, to make good wine. As opposed to this guy, while still respecting tradition and want to work with traditional varieties and enjoy as little as possible, he still has some modern technology put in here. So there's a cement tank, right? There's a little sulfites added. So it's just kind of a little bit, it's almost like a different, like a philosophical stance, right? So, and then last week, you can, either you love it or you hate it. You are like, this is like a fucked up wine. This is not a stable wine. I think that's honestly a fair criticism to have that. But that, again, that we haven't had, Todd and Andrea, you haven't heard me talk about this. All the veterans have had some of heard this, because especially when we talk about fault on that grid, I've gone on this tangent and gotten in my soapbox about it. Like, what is fault, right? But last week's wine is by no means a perfect wine. There's a lot of fault. There's a little bit of imperfections. You can see it in the wine. But to me, that's what makes that wine beautiful. There's some of that kind of rawness, the honesty, like that you can see these little imperfections, right? It's like the Ramones. They're not the perfect, they're not Philharmonic Orchestra, but you love that music because there's some fucking wrong notes that get played. Like there's something raw about it. And that's what last week's was. And this week's is like, I don't know. It's like Pink Floyd. I don't know. It's much more well rehearsed and like really just like much better production. I don't know if this analogy makes sense to you. But I agree with you, Morris. I mean, I think that's a perfectly fair statement. And also to say, like, this is a kind of wine, right? This style, this kind of conventional kind of flavor profile of it is what we're used to. Like, this is what we're taught when we start drinking wine, right? Like a lot of wine profile was this kind of clean, stable, no imperfections, kind of like conventional, almost like dead wines, right? Because these were like I said, sulfur from the beginning, use Lacroix, they're perfectly stable, right? But no imperfections, but kind of dead because they were so heavily manipulated. And that's kind of what most people are taught on that wine. But when in fact, and our palate got used to that. So anything outside of that, we're like, whoa, what's going on with this wine? Like there's something wrong with this wine. But when in fact, wines like last week's wine was for the majority of human history was the kind of wines that we drank. But is that necessarily worse? Is that better? I don't know. You tell me.
No,
It's
that's
just
like
not
it's like your
very-
fun. It's like your fun friend that I don't know. You sometimes invite to parties and sometimes don't.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, exactly. They get maybe a little too fucked up. They're loud mouth. They say some shit that is like really polarizing, but like they're super fun. Like they're real. They're on it. They're authentic. They're true to themselves. And like, how do you not like somebody like that?
Yeah, but that friend walked in from the barnyard.
Yeah, take a shower, bro, before walking into the house. Absolutely. Yeah.
It's best at an outdoor party. It's like your Memorial Day party you're gonna have where you start with that and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
you move on to something more serious.
Yeah.
Before you get too drunk and then you just drink the shit.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, that's always another debate, right? Like people always ask you, like, do you always eat your favorite bite first, or do you save it to the last? I'm always eat the favorite bite first person. But yeah, so like, especially with drinking, it's just like more you drink, like after you've had a bottle or two, it doesn't fucking matter. Like, put a yellowtail in front of me, I'll still drink it. Like everything tastes fine. But that first bottle, I want that to be the best bottle. But I don't know. Some people feel differently. So. This wine is really good. I really like this a lot. It's delicious. Delicious. Any other questions? Comments? Also, this is a kind of the debate conversation that I love having, like putting into people's head, like food for thought. It's just like, why last week's wine versus this week's wine? Is one better than the other? One is better. Cool. We're hearing no other questions. I'm gonna turn off the recording.